Elden Ring's spirit summoning mechanic is really neat, but I think everyone agrees that it can be better, and by better, I mean dumb as hell. And thanks to Nex's mods, it can be a whole lot dumber, by making every boss, enemy, and NPC an option for spirit summoning. The rules were simple. I can't do damage unless absolutely necessary, which it is for just a few bosses with how janky aggro can be. I can only use a summon once per boss, just to prevent me from hiding behind the same dominant woman for the entire run. And I can only craft an enemy, boss, or NPC if they're encounterable at the point I am in the game. A huge shout out to the creator of the mod. It'll be in the description of the video for you to try out yourself, which I highly recommend. Like the video as it helps a lot. Subscribe if you're new here, and let's get carried by spirit summons. To start, I chose the Prophet class, since I was gonna be a little mercy pocket for the run anyways, and blind handsome Squidward was off. I grabbed the crafting kit from Calais, and went and got a horsey from a baddie. Then, I wanted to see how these summons were with a bit of a test. So I made the Calais summon, and got the attention of a certain white mask fella. Calais, certainly put in work.
Away! Away!
I decided a good starting point would be going around and just saying hi to all the boys in the land between, so that I could craft them as a summon. So I said hi to Yura. Then gave a kind hello to Alexander. And early game loot was super light. Smithing stones and some stamina boosts is all that I really needed until I got stronger support in cans. While traveling around the early game was when I also decided on the rules for leveling the summons. Since you just use a craftable Glovewort 1 to get all the way to max level with the mod, and I didn't want to have to run around trying to obtain vanilla scaling, I just decided that I would increase by 1 or 2 levels for every Great Rune obtained. But rounding out before Margit, I decided to get myself the Rejection Incant, as it could have use against enemies that can be knocked around, but it didn't do damage, so I felt it was fine. For the big-footed Omen fella, I decided to use Ranni, since I had to say hi to her to get my bell. And although I'm no stranger to blowing my Ranni load too early, I really should have saved her and not shotgunned her on the first boss, because she was unbelievably busted. She just went full Giga Spam Gideon style with her sorceries and crumpled him pretty easily. So unfortunately that was it for Ranni.
How's it going, dude?
Since Gostok isn't a boss, it wouldn't cost me a summon. So I busted out the just slain Margit, and yeah, shocking, but it wasn't much of a fight. I got John Jar to give me a hand with Nereus and Patches, who made quick work of them, and that was 2 new summons at my disposal. I went through Stormveil using the secret path, and when I got to the dark room to get the rusty key, I used it to test out my fellow bald brother. I don't want to flat out say he's useless, but he's fucking useless. The mod gave him some frenzy, which was pretty cool, but the damage was nothing to brag about. He's also just dumb as a brick. I don't know what the fuck he was doing, but it was not helpful to me in the slightest. I ended up just grabbing the key and bouncing. Bald dickhead can fight his own battles. But I said hi to Rajier, and when traversing through the castle, Patches had his moment of redemption. Yeah, I just threw him in storage for the rest of the run. I completely lost all faith in him. I'll use my bare hands if it comes down to it. At least I don't fall to my death. As I was needlessly murdering Nepheli, I was deciding on who I should use for Godric, but I actually found a craftable summon that was just a bunch of exiled soldiers. So instead of trading a boss for a boss like Margit or something, or spending a potentially useful NPC, I just hit up some of the fellas to come over, and they pulled up. They went kinda crazy, I can't lie. Their damage output wasn't game breaking, but they could take a mean punch. And shout out to the crossbow dude, just treating it like a Dark Souls 2 no hit run, just chilling at a distance. I respect his grind. But they were able to take out Godric without too much trouble at all. This fight did make me worried that maybe all the summons had potentially too high HP scaling, but I learned later in the run that when the scaling ramps up, leveling the summons does become necessary. Power creep is just a little too crazy in Elden Ring. Heading into Liurnia, and I had a good amount of summons at my disposal, and that number was only going to keep growing. I liked having the flexibility. I continued my unnecessary hatred for NPCs by killing Bald Guy number 2, and made my way to Hogwarts. I wanted to see how the summon's AI is against a mobile enemy, so I went to take out Smaragd, and it went exceptionally horrible. Not only did Nepheli just stand there as soon as Smaragd flew away once, but I perfected the art of misplaying like a dumbass. So it was time for Raya Lucaria. After dying to the marionette soldiers, my petty ass decided to bust out a demigod on them. And Godric proceeded to walk away and try to fight the trash mobs that were dropping down. I mean, he was doing his job and fighting things for me, so I guess I can't be too mad. I got set up for Red Wolf, but I actually decided I wanted to dip my toes into Altus. I could have just grabbed the medallions, but that didn't seem as fun, so I said hi to a turtle for some new incants, and made my way up to Magma Worm Mike. I felt this would be a good time for Godric to really prove himself. Even at this scaling, I definitely noticed the lack of damage the summon was doing, and he was starting to take a bit of a bump too. And God bless Godric, but he just chills right in the magma spewing all around him, and he is constantly getting staggered. I had killed Godric already, so I could have leveled up my summon by at least a level, but I felt like I could do it without having to still. So I switched over to Margit, as I felt he would be a little more agile. And it was pretty down to the wire, but it was super doable, until I potentially choked. But I had ways to prevent that from happening again. I slapped on Patches' armor, since that's all I had, and it looked pretty cool, and popped Godric's Great Ruin, since it's just a broken thing to have. With that, my car went smooth, although I was still earlier in the run than I thought I would be, before I really had to start being aware of my summon's health. It was starting to ramp up a good bit. Surely I wouldn't be able to craft stupid broken summons that would trivialize bosses later. I used Altus access to go look at a senile fella, and then told the blind guy where he was to get myself great heal. Then made a stroll just to the bottom of Mount Gelmir to get the Golden Vow Incant. With the goodies collecting done, it was time to make some real progress. For Red Wolf, I just needed someone who could deliver a good smack, instead of trying to match his mobility. And Erdtree Avatar was the perfect choice. This thick bitch tree stump just aura farmed, then bonked the puppy, and I got it taken care of without a hiccup. Although not a boss, I wanted to give Godric some sort of chance at redemption after his last 2 blunders, so I summoned him against John Caria, and my man got his redemption, goddammit. I was like a proud old dad watching his son beat the shit out of a stranger. Godric put in his work in something that was ultimately pointless. What more could I ask for? With a quick detour to grab the Radagon icon, it was time for Rennala. And this was one of the fights that I was fearing the most, since depending on how the summon acts, this could just not be done. I decided that I would even help Godric out by breaking the shield and getting her to fall, but once she was laying on the ground, Godric just wasn't interested, but he just kept fighting the ads and didn't even notice the 7-foot magical baddie in front of him. I tried to make it work, but it just kept happening, and I was eventually sniped. I decided that if I was gonna come up with a workaround, it would be goofy as hell. So I tested how much bleed Vare is capable of as a summon, and he was doing pretty good work, but I felt it could be even better. And I realized that I had already met Nereus, so I figured she would be a better choice for Operation Giga Bleed the boss before they can even comprehend what's happening. So I went and grabbed some smithing stones, and figured that I would use a scrub summon to take out Crystallian. And there was nothing more scrub-like than Bach. Little did I know that this mod turned Bach into a goddamn laser nuking demigod. Look at this little freak, dude is a demon. I should have known and held on to him for Radagon. But now with a couple of levels into a mace with a zesty bleed stack and spin, Nereus and myself went and took out Rennala. I know I didn't have to help with phase 2, but I can never resist the urge to just do some insane bleed damage. It'll never not be a huge dopamine hit for me, so I stretched the rules into her second phase just in the name of fun, and it was worth it.
Help!
And that was a Rennala defeated. I didn't plan to do all the remembrances, but I did think that getting to Ranni's Rise would be a good idea so that I can say hi to E.G., Celavus, and Blythe, since they all are summons. And now it was time for Godric redemption. My goat was gonna take down a boss, and he was gonna take down the Draconic Tree Sentinel. No magma to get stuck on, no enemies to get distracted by, just a demigod versus a guy on a horse. I switched to Celavus. But this switch to Celavus was when I learned something great. Certain enemies or bosses, like the DTS, can be knocked out of their attack animation by me using rejection. So all I had to do was hug his backside and spam it, and he just wouldn't be able to attack. And that led Celavus to be allowed to just spam his magic at him, and it melted him quickly. It was nice not having to give in and just level up. and instead coming up with a way to make it work with what I have. It's one of those little things that makes these runs fun to me. Inside Lanedale, I grabbed a book to give to a turtle, just one of those sentences that makes Elden Ring special, and got myself Lord's Heal. On my way up to Goldfree, and I found out there was a summon for Thops, Selin, and Moongrum. And hey, I had gotten to the point of saying hi to all them, so I busted them out for this one. Yeah, who would have thought that this would be an absolute ass kicking? Once they locked in on the actual boss and stopped fighting the little tree goblins through the fog wall, it was an embarrassment for the first Elden Lord. Dude got clobbered. I know a lot of what you've seen is these summons being completely broken, but I would like to highlight this attempted fight against O'Neil to show how sometimes they can be the biggest pain in the ass. Like, what is even happening here? Kale.exe just fucking broke and he's just standing there. The fight pissed me off so much that when I died, I just straight up stopped playing for a few hours.
He's just standing there.
When I had a clear head and was focused on the actual main progress, that meant Morgott was next. This fight was Renala's moment, and it was the moment I really learned that magic specifically is just absurd in this mod. Any summon that shot some magic loads melted everything. I went from Godric struggling to a DTS just to get Renala nuking Morgott like it was absolutely nothing. I wanted to take on Radahn with Morgott, because I mean it's in the opening cinematic, so it has to be somewhat lore accurate. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to summon it all in this fight with my spirit summons. But hey, this whole fight is built around summoning the boys for a gank fight, so I just did it that way. It just didn't end up being anything special, and just became a normal, very long, pretty boring Radahn fight. I let Jaren beat the shit out of me, which was fun to sit back and watch. I tried to bust out Redaniel for Fire Giant. I figured he would hit hard even if he wasn't locked in on his ankle. I was so innocent and naive back then. This dude just had Leonard working overtime, running around like a madman. He would run in, get staggered, slap him once, then go dick around on the other side of the arena. I decided I wanted to take out Moog, so I could take a gander in the DLC and get a clear head. And I may have forgotten that I killed Vare, so I couldn't do his quest to get the medallion. So I had to either go through Nile and run through the snowfields, or cheat it in. And I would never just cheat the item in. For Moog, I made him fight his brother. This was getting weird. I only brought him up to a +5, honestly not expecting him to do anything with such low scaling, but he held up pretty well. The amount he was getting bled honestly wasn't even the part that was problematic. It was how easily he was getting staggered that made it brutal. It just felt like he was making no progress, because he was near stun locked. After about 3 minutes of fighting, he did his nihil. And after a death, I felt with how late game Moog is, I could justify putting in a few more levels. And it worked in my favor. A +8 Morgott was by no means trivializing the fight, still took about 6 minutes in total, but he was getting staggered less, and he was dealing consistent yellow damage, and my boy was able to clean up Moog, giving me DLC access. Aside from the typical skidoo lootin', I got all the way to Shaman Village to grab the Minor Erdtree incantation. But I also didn't want to go too back and forth between DLC and base game. So after grabbing that, I decided it was time to just man up and take on Fire Giant. I could have justified leveling up Radon past a +5, but I didn't want to. I felt the huge level boost from Moog and the Minor Erdtree was enough of a buff that I could do it. Did it end up taking me 17 minutes according to my editing timeline? Yes. Was I rewatching the first season of Peacemaker on my second monitor to prevent me from going insane? Yes. But ultimately, did Radon manage to get the job done? Absolutely. I was proud of my boy, and with that I had Crumbling access. In a never-ending quest of finding a boss that Godric can kill, I got him to +9 and took out the Godskin Apostle. It wasn't necessary in the slightest, and it felt horribly underwhelming as a result. I can't even celebrate this victory. It was like watching someone you love finish 31st in a 30-person race.
I am the Lord.
Family.
I don't know why making the clones fight is so much fun to me, but it really is. It just hits different watching them wage war on each other. I pulled out Mowgli for Malekith, and he nailed it. I, however, did not nail it and died while chilling in a corner. I was able to take him down on a second try though.
To stand before the Elden Ring, to become Elden Lord. I commend your spirit, but alas, shall take the throne. Queen Margaret, however, for us, and we will continue to struggle unto eternity.
Are you seriously watching porn by yourself?
Nah, I'm with my.
While I had already used Moog and Morgott in this run, there was another summon option that was both Moog and Morgott. While fraudulent, I had to try it. It just looked awesome. So I made the rule to allow it, as long as I kept them low level. I decided on 3 tops to see if they could take on scaling this high into the late game, since they were a little buddy cop duo. I liked the challenge of having 2 great summons working together while doing it at a really low level. A +0 was too low for Godfrey. They were just getting smoked the minute he started doing his shockwave stomps. As was I, because my dumbass couldn't comprehend the fact that it was arena wide. Apparently it was my first time fighting Godfrey.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
But on a second attempt, and just the small boost to a +3, the guys got the job done. The damage was nothing to brag about, don't get me wrong. They were barely doing yellow damage, but their conjoint tickles worked them down, and they were able to take advantage of his long wind-up attacks to get some good chunks of health off. And that brought me just outside the final boss, and I decided to hold off until I did at least a bit of DLC goodness. I used Big Meat Lou for my Mesmer fight, and got him right to +10, thinking that with DLC scaling, it would be mandatory. I honestly think I could have gotten away with like a +8 or even 7. A good amount of bosses would have needed max level. But Hoaraloo is so active and eager to slap some bosses around that his pressure was just so effective on its own. He made really short work of him. After fighting him, I realized I had interaction with a lot of new summons though, and one that caught my eye was the Furnace Golem. I could not believe that it was a summon. I had to try it. I figured Niall was fitting, since he has to rely on garbage summons of his own, so I didn't mind getting a big boy to just stomp on them all. Little did I know that the Furnace Golem fire would also hit me. This fight very quickly went from sitting on my ass watching Niall get pummeled to to constantly having to jump for my own survival. I had also always used Torrent for this fight when I fought him properly in the DLC, so I got snagged a good couple of times, I'll admit. But after a long fight of jumping and jumping and jumping, I got Nile out of the way and the Howling Tree access that comes with it. Destined Death may have been a little excessive for a nice lady on a horse. Which brought me to Liurnia, and there was only one possible choice for Liurnia. Not only the strongest character in Elden Ring, but potentially the strongest character in video game history. On to cleaning up the DLC, and I brought out Fire Giant for Romina, and he sucked. Dude is far too passive, and since he can be rotted, he just got drained slowly and didn't do anything about it. Well, I thought up a plan for her. I went and used Liurnia to take on Radabeast. She made quick work of them both. Elden Beast was a little longer than normal, since he likes to zoom around like a madman sometimes, but my glorious queen took him out. And that was it for base game. Now I just needed to figure out the Romina problem. Since I could, in theory, climb the mountain up to Baal, I decided Baal would be perfect for Romina. He was at a good level of aggro, and I assumed he would do great damage. And hey, who doesn't love watching a PC get fucking nuked in real time?
Tactical nuke incoming!
Not only was Baal able to take down Romina, he was able to take down my PC as well. So I'd say he's pretty strong for this run. And with that, it was just time for Promised Consort Radahn. I wanted to finish this one off with another mirror match between Consort Radahns, so I summoned him up and watched them duke it out. And then he lost. Consort Radahn was no match for Consort Radahn. I was embarrassed for him. A catastrophic choke. So I decided to switch from a mirror match to a lore fight, and although fraudulent since I'd already summoned Malenia, I could use the Malenia summon that also includes Millicent and the rest of her girlies, and it should come as no surprise that this absolutely annihilated him in an incredibly satisfying final fight. This run was a blast. While it's fun to destroy Elden Ring through min-maxing and no-hitting and all that jazz, it's fun to do a run where it's super 50-50. On whether or not I'm going to absolutely destroy the boss, or have to come up with something zesty and not traditional to a normal Elden Ring fight. Be sure to subscribe if you're new here, it means a lot. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.